What I'm going to talk about now is understanding and managing our responses to the Canterbury earthquakes, now over a year after the September earthquake and at least 9 months after the February earthquakes. So trying to understand what we're experiencing now and then what we're likely to see over the coming months, what we might predict from research into previous disasters across the world, thinking about what we know is likely to be helpful for all of us and what's helpful across the community. And then spending a little time talking about the importance of us all continuing to look after ourselves and our friends and our colleagues, and when to seek help. What are the indicators that we might need more? So first of all, when we think about the responses that we're seeing and experiencing ourselves, it's realizing that they are normal in the context of everything that we've been through over these months. So that in the context of experiencing an earthquake and now over 8,000 aftershocks, and dealing with everything that we're having to deal with in our everyday life, the real concerns, the real worries, the real difficulties that we're all struggling with. And really because of how long everything's gone on for, the months and months it's gone on for. Okay, so first of all, thinking about what are the typical reactions to a very traumatic event that we've all been through, like a disaster, like the earthquakes. So this feeling of fear, a quite instinctive response that is a real worry for all of us. Worrying about what could have happened, what may happen in the future. Feeling very hyper-aroused, so that's feeling very on edge, pretty much all the time. Still being very easily startled by loud noises, by buses driving past, by trucks driving past, things that make the ground shake. We're very easily triggered and often still have that startle response where we jump, can't stop it happening. Still really difficult. It's getting less for lots of people as the aftershocks are getting less, but it still is present. Avoiding things that remind us of perhaps where we were at the time of the earthquake, multi-storey buildings, the city centre, places like that. Still feeling anxious about being separated from our families or our homes. Sleep disturbance, this is a huge issue for lots of people. Not only do the aftershocks happen, it seems, more at night, but also we're sleeping much more lightly. It's much more difficult to get back off to sleep. And we're feeling really tired as a result of that. This feeling of being a bit detached, not quite there. Again, that was probably more prevalent in the immediate few weeks and months, and it is gradually lessening for most people. And people having recurrent memories of the earthquakes or things that remind them of that. Again, that might be an indicator that one of the reasons you might be needing to get more help. The common persisting themes that are really prevalent right now. This overwhelming feeling of fatigue or exhaustion. And it's not just because of the sleep disturbance that I talked about earlier. It's about living with that heightened sense of arousal, being on edge, being prepared for things. I think we are really, really tired. I know I certainly am. A feeling of being quite despondent at times, overwhelmed about how long everything is going to take, everything we've got to do. Worries about the future, they're still there for lots of people. Feelings of anger and frustration with organisations, with insurance agencies, with the multiple things that we're dealing with. And all of that's coming out in interpersonal and relationship issues, so at home, in the workplace, pretty much everywhere. Everyone's on quite a short fuse. And an increasing use and abuse of substances, so alcohol, drugs, people using that as a way of kind of wanting to switch off quickly, instantly when they come home from work, having a drink of wine, and then having more and more, and that's coming with its own problems. Thinking about children and adolescents, so young children are still having some difficulty sleeping, some still coming into mum and dad's bed at night, and of course that's making the parents sleep even worse. Being anxious about separating from parents and being a bit clingy still, and generally being a bit more anxious. There's some regressive behaviour, so by that I mean being more clingy, perhaps thumb sucking or bedwetting, things like that. In adolescence, it's slightly different. Again, sleep problems, still a problem. I think feeling more emotional and more irritable, if that's possible for adolescents to feel even more emotional and irritable, but they are at the moment, I think. A bit less enthusiastic, confused about what the future's going to bring. So, talk about the city going to be rebuilt in 5 years. That's a long time for a lot of adolescents. Lots of worries about how all this has impacted on their study and their exams and their future. The things have just been a very, very difficult year for them. Okay, I've shown this picture before, and I think it's a helpful way of thinking about what we've been through both individually and as a community. So first of all, we didn't have a warning period. The earthquake then, but things like floods did. They would hear about that and be able to prepare. Then for us, the earthquake hit. And there was this phase which is described as the heroic honeymoon phase, which was a really good time for lots of people. By good I mean a real sense of feeling connected to other people, that people were doing amazing, amazing work. So the rescue workers, the farming army, the student army, but actually all of us across the community, everyone was doing anything for anyone. And there was a real sense that you could ask anything of anyone and they would help you out and look out for you. And it was an amazing sense of cohesion across the community. So in the midst of all this horror and terror and difficulty, there was this real sense of that we are together and we can get through this together if we look out for each other. Then this phase of disillusionment, so a feeling of this is going on, this is a huge and long-standing problem that we're going to have to deal with. And then eventually turning the corner and working through to a new beginning. And you'll see from this graph that the line at the end, the new beginning, is higher than the pre-disaster line, and that's emphasizing that individuals and communities that have really struggled through adversity, such as we've been through, do come out of it often in a different and a better place than they were at before. And this is called post-traumatic growth, and it's about seeing things in a different light, that what we may have valued before, material type things, really aren't worth it. It's about our people, our friends, our family. That's what's really important. And realizing that we can cope with an amazing amount of difficulty and crisis and come through it. Not perfectly, but come through it. And we can learn lots from that. Turning to what's helpful now. So what research has shown us is that the overwhelming outcome of disasters is that most people, the vast majority of people, come through these with no long-term mental health difficulties. This is about resilience. So this isn't just that we're a tough Canterbury, South Island community. This is about that we can bend with the stresses that have been huge that we've been through. But we can bend back and come through this. And that's the overwhelming outcome of disaster after disaster across the world. And what we also know are components that lead to a sort of better prognosis, a better outcome. are these four factors really. A sense of safety, that we do have safety plans in place, both individually for our families, in our workplaces, making us feel that we can have a safe outcome from all this. The next factor is about self and community efficacy and empowerment. And what that means is that being involved in projects that determine our own outcome, really. So it might be within your family or within your workplace or within the city, planning for the rebuild of the city, planning for community projects that are ongoing. A real sense that if you're involved in that and communities are involved in that, it has a really good outcome. It's you taking control of the situation to bring about something that will be good for yourself or the community. The third factor is this sense of connectedness, which is a bit like I talked to you on that previous diagram, this feeling of cohesion, of being connected within your families, within your neighbourhoods, within your workplace, that you do care for, interact and feel connected with your fellow human being. And that has a hugely positive outcome. And I think across the country, still feeling that the rest of the country does care about us, and across the world that people do still care about us, that actually is a good prognostic outcome. And the fourth factor is this sense of hope. Hope that we can move on from this and arrive at that better space that I was talking to you about earlier, building a really cool city, building a place where we want to be, because Christchurch is still a fantastic place to live. It's certainly got its trials at the moment, but it still is a great place to live and work.